The Metal Mentality podcast is brought to you in partnership with AM300 and the Phoenix Project. For more information on both, check out am300.com/metal.
It's time for you to be the you that you know you can be and define your metal. My name is Preston Ewell, and I'm the host of the Metal Mentality podcast. I'm a husband, a father, and American soldier. What is metal? It's your strength of character that you rely on to endure hardship. It's your grit. Together we'll learn from some dedicated, passionate, metal-minded individuals who define themselves by their grit and their graduation from suffering. Be metal. Stay metal.
You're listening to the Metal Mentality Podcast. Now, here's your host, Preston Ewell.
Hey everyone, welcome to the show today. Man, I'm so excited for this episode, this interview for y'all to hear. My guest today is a remarkable human being. He is a professional snowboarder. He's currently ranked 20th in the world in the half pipe. He's an Olympic hopeful. He's a member of the U.S. ski and snowboard team. This episode of Metal Mentality is pretty cool. We talked about some really interesting things with my guest today. We talk about how your health and having a holistic approach to that is beneficial, not only to yourself mentally, physically, emotionally, but also spiritually. We talk about discipline and the importance of having mentors, as well as the resiliency and the similarity between professional athletes, members of the military, and how those things apply to regular everyday life. The principles are universally true. We also address this quarantine issue, how we're all affected by this virus and how we can use this as an opportunity for growth, and how stillness will help us readjust our priorities. We also are going to talk about perfectionism and why it's based on perception as well as preference for what we want to see. We talk about being perfect is really just being authentic. We're going to talk about how your mistakes are your classroom and how we need to use our mistakes to grow. One of the most impactful things that my guest today shares is embracing adversity, and how that is where you will learn the most, is when you embrace your adversity. So with that being said, let me introduce you to my guest today. My guest today is Lucas Foster. Lucas Foster is currently ranked 20th in the world in the snowboard halfpipe. He is a member of the U.S. ski and snowboard team and an Olympic hopeful. And someday I believe he's going to win a gold medal, and you will hear his story here. And I hope that when he does make it to the Olympics, you are rooting for him just as much as I am. Lucas, how are you doing today, my friend?
Good, man. How are you?
Hanging in there. This quarantine has been tough. We were just talking that having my kids do school from home and not being able to go anywhere has definitely put a challenge to things in ways that we have never been done before. So how are you doing with all of this?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm not a whole lot going on my end. I'm just getting home kind of from a really long winter. So it's kind of nice timing for me since I get to rest and just kind of, catch up on much needed time off, I guess. But it's definitely different. Like, there's a lot of things that I would do every day that you kind of can't do right now, obviously, due to the lockdowns. But I think there's a lot of opportunity in this too. While we are sitting at home, there's plenty of stuff we can do. We just kind of got to dig deep. So it'll be hard at first, I think, but I think we can all find some positives in it down the road. So,
yeah, I totally agree with you. The initial start of all of this is really rough because our way of life has totally changed. But I think into a routine of things and find out, I don't have to be out and about to still enjoy life. It's going to help us maybe refocus on our priorities.
Totally.
So let's talk a little bit about you growing up before you have kind of had the success that you've had. When you're not snowboarding, when you're not out doing insane stuff on half pipes and coming down the mountain a million miles an hour, tell me about you. Who are you outside of the professional athlete?
Yeah, outside of snowboarding, I'd say, I guess being a snowboarder led me into a lot of other things. So due to snowboarding, I'm super into kind of passing down knowledge, and that's kind of led me into teaching skateboarding whenever I'm not snowboarding. So in the summer, that's kind of what I spend my time doing. And yeah, I like teaching kids. I like being a mentor in any way, shape, or form. I'm super into kind of entrepreneurship and like creating things and kind of learning how I can just become better every day, whether that's in creating stuff in business, or just becoming a healthier person physically or mentally. That's what I'm into, is just like making myself better and happier and trying to make the world a better place.
That's why I think you're going to be the perfect guest for this show. Is this show
Thanks.
about personal growth and development and enduring hardship and using difficult times to propel us to as a catalyst to become better individually
Yeah,
and collectively as a group of people.
for
And
sure.
this virus and this quarantine that many of us are experiencing is really going to force us to have that opportunity, I think.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about your health and your training. I know that you have a very pretty rigorous training schedule and diet, and tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'd say it's rigorous necessarily, but like as far as my off snow training goes, I do the usual stuff that most athletes do, go to the gym and stretch and eat well. But my my whole background comes from a guy named Paul Chek, who he's a total legend in health and wellness, and um, he kind of pioneered functional exercise, I guess you could say. And he has this institute in San Diego where people will go and learn from Paul and learn all the stuff that he kind of has created in the health and wellness industry, and diet, lifestyle stuff, and how that plays into your physical strength and your mental strength and your and all that. So my trainer here in Telluride went to Paul and learned everything from him. So that would take a whole nother podcast to explain really like how all the Czech stuff benefits my life. But yeah, I mean, in the summertime, I spend a lot of time going to the gym, and just also a lot of time just kind of fixing imbalances in my body. That comes first. So like, the start of the summer is always about, looking at my body, my flexibility, my alignment, making sure I'm fixing any imbalances that I have, and then I build strength on top of that. So there's a lot of stuff, but yeah, diet is huge too, doubling down on certain foods, staying away from certain foods. But
Do you double down on? What do you avoid, and why do you do that?
I avoid eating gluten as much as possible, because gluten just makes my body feel horrible. I just pretty much get super inflamed anytime I eat gluten, unless it's like over in Europe, because their grains over there, their wheat, less processed than it is over here. So yeah, I avoid gluten. I eat a lot of vegetables, obviously. Try to eat as much organic food as possible, organic, non-GMO. I don't really eat much dairy, and try to stay away from refined sugars as much as possible. So, I wouldn't say I stick to a certain diet. I kind of learn how to listen to my body and learn learn what foods my body needs based off of certain cues that my body will give me.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
A protein, or do you avoid meats, or what's your relationship with?
no, it's on and off, I guess. Sometimes I can kind of really feel when my body has had too much meat or too much fat, I guess. That's kind of when I'm feeling super sluggish and kind of just clouded mentally too. And especially if I feel my body is working too hard to digest, then that's kind of when I can look at my diet in the last few days and be like, all right, I've had a lot of red meat, or a lot of certain fats that you got to balance everything.
Mm-hmm.
So in those cases, I'll maybe cut out eating a huge breakfast in the morning. Like sometimes I'll be eating 2 eggs and sausage with MCT oil, so it'll be really high in protein, really high in fat. Then I'll kind of transition into the mornings, eating like some apples with almond butter and banana, and more carb based, I guess, because you kind of got to have a good balance of carbs and regular sugars that aren't, candy sugar, obviously, like fruit sugar.
Yeah. So you got to get your fructose is a little bit different than your corn, right?
Yeah, totally. Like you kind of got to, the way I look at it and the way Paul Chek would explain it is eating eyes versus no eyes. So if the food that you're eating has eyes, like any animal product, you got to balance eyes and no eyes. So fruits and vegetables are no eyes. Fats coming from a cow or pigs, that's an eyes food. You got to balance it equally and understand when your body needs eyes versus no eyes. That's kind of a certain way you can look at it.
How does that play into your overall wellness? The diet, obviously, what we eat affects us, right? But how does that help?
Oh yeah.
And how's that affect your relationship with yourself and your personal development and your growth?
It's everything, man. I mean, really what you eat, obviously, as you said, it's your fuel for the day. But, the way we experience this world is through our bodies. And, it's your vehicle to move through the world and move through your life. And if your vehicle is being fueled by terrible gas that's just going to crap out on you, then your life is obviously going to be pretty hard. So like my relationship with food is like, it determines my physical well-being for the day and how my body feels. And like, if you really want to get deep in the science of it, what we eat is how our minds are going to think and stuff throughout the day. And again, that would take a whole nother podcast to explain how our food plays into our mental, emotional, spiritual lives. But yeah, I mean, food is sacred for sure. And you got to really like have a good relationship with your diet. And it sounds crazy because like some people just look at food as like, oh, you're just, getting rid of your hunger for the day. But it's a lot deeper than that, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. I love food and I love gluten and carbs. That's like my downfall. Breads are my favorite. And I imagine if I was more structured in my eating that I'd probably be doing a lot better emotionally and well, maybe I should start doing that. This is probably the perfect time to do that because my patience gets pretty thin, with my being home all this time. So.
And it's totally normal too. Like I love eating bread also. You just gotta, like for me, I love balling out and having some junk here and there, but it's just all about understanding how that'll affect you. And it just takes discipline and stuff. So it's totally normal to like have urges, I guess. But a lot of people too, like with the diet and like choosing to eat healthy, a lot of people kind of get it twisted with like, oh, you're doing that just for your snowboarding and like, that's such a jock move. But for me, the diet piece is like just for my simple well-being. It has, my snowboarding benefits indirectly due to just eating well. But whether I was a snowboarder or a skateboarder or like, it wouldn't matter what I would be doing. I'll always care about how I'm eating and stuff. So just want to make that clear too, that, choosing to keep my body healthy and keep my mind healthy really way past snowboarding and skateboarding. It's all, like I said, living life through my body and wanting to live my life, as well as I can.
Yeah. I think it's impressive that with the discipline that you have. So outside of your diet discipline, what other ways do you instill discipline in your life that allows you to be successful and to grow?
Man, that's a good question. I mean, it's a struggle, to be honest, always. I think it is. Everyone goes through some sort of struggle when it comes to discipline. But for me, like, I have a lot of good mentors in my life that remind me that you got to be disciplined at all times. And like, you can talk about your dreams all you want and you can kind of manifest your dreams all you want through, law of attraction practices and stuff, but like you're never really going to make any progress with those dreams if you don't back up your your beliefs with your actions. That's kind of something that's the first thing that pops into my mind is like, you know, I can talk about wanting to be an Olympian all day, but that doesn't mean anything unless I'm doing things that align with what I say. So that's kind of like the dangling fruit over me always, like, hey, like you got to keep walking your talk. You can't just sit there and talk about wanting to do this and that. Having mentors, though, that's been a big thing. Like people in my life that just remind me what I'm doing and why I do it. And yeah.
I think it's really hard to be successful in life without having good mentors.
Yeah.
Nobody can do this. We can't have the level of success that we want and be the type of people that we want to be without having someone to help us. And that's the whole purpose kind of what this show is. I'm trying to create a community of network of mentors for people to say, hey, I really like his message or I like this, so they can pull bits and pieces of this to change their lives and themselves and make want happen. You know what I mean? And so
Totally.
who are some of the mentors in your life that have gotten you to, who have instilled this discipline and help you stay grounded?
I mean, definitely my mom and dad. Those are like my earliest mentors, obviously, since they brought me into this world. My dad, like, he's a super laid back, chill guy, which is great. And I need that in my life because I'm pretty fired up and competitive. So it's nice to have him kind of remind me that life isn't all about proving what you got and stuff. And you can still live a happy life without trying to be the best because, as I said, I'm super competitive. So, you know, he's a mentor in that regard. And, you know, he's the person that got me on a snowboard in the first place. So, you know, I guess I have mentors for different things in life. You know, my mom is a huge mentor in my life for the discipline piece because, you know, she's a very organized, super, like, well planned out person. And everything's got to kind of be done in a certain way with her. So she's taught me really how to, you know, have the same thing in my life, you know, be organized, have expectations for myself, you know, meet those expectations always, whether you're snowboarding, whether you're cleaning the house, whether you're teaching a kid how to skate, like, you know. So she's been huge for that. And then one of the biggest ones for just my snowboard career and also just my teaching me about health and wellness would be my trainer, Jason Cannon. He was a pro snowboarder in the 90s, and he's the guy that the Czech trainer that I learned everything I know from. So he's really taught me how to be aware of my diet and all that, and how that's playing a role in my mental, emotional life and my physical well-being. And he's taken me to a lot of cool places to snowboard, and really, like, he really took my whole life and dissected it and told me what I had to fix and what I had to double down on and cut away in my life to become the snowboarder I am and the person I am. So I'd say those are the three big ones, where my mom, dad, Jason, and there's so many more though. Jesse is a mentor in a lot of ways. My coach on the U.S. snowboard team, JJ Thomas, is a mentor for sure. Like he's doing everything that I am dreaming of doing right now. You know, he went to the Olympics, he's won the X Games. So there's a lot that I've learned from JJ and yeah, tons of people.
Yeah, I think having a mentor for different areas of your life is key. Because if you just have one mentor, you go to them for everything. They may have a superpower in one area or one ability, but they're not going to have the answer for everything. So I think that that's really key. And you say Jesse, and a lot of the listeners know exactly who you're talking about. He's the former guest I've had on, Jesse Stewart. And you're saying that he's been a mentor to you, and he's also been a mentor to me. He's actually the one that set this up so that you and I could have this conversation. But he has life experience, and he goes the extra mile to help someone if he feels that he can help them. And it's really impressive. And that's one of the things that I admire the most in him, is giving everything you have to someone if you ask for your help and you feel like their cause is worthy. So that's a goal of mine that I wish I'm striving to get to, being able to give everything I have to someone when they need help.
Hmm. Yeah, he's awesome. He's definitely helped me with that too. Just reminding me how, as an athlete or like as someone that's, you know, might be in the Olympics someday, like we, all athletes, we all have a responsibility to kind of inspire the generation that comes after us, whether we like it or not. People are, or kids are going to look up to us, and we got to really like remember that we're being of service always. Um, and we can either be of service in a positive way or a negative way. So he's really reminded me, then reminded a lot of my friends, like, hey, it's a lot more than winning a gold medal for you guys, whether you like it or not.
Mhm.
Um,
Your idol.
so that's
We put professional athletes up on a pedestal, I think. And I know I did that as a kid. When growing up, I was a huge basketball fan, and I live here in Utah, so naturally I was a Utah Jazz fan. Karl Malone and John Stockton were gods to me, and thankfully they're fairly good people. So I had good people to look up to. But and you're
yeah.
step into that role, and people are going to be looking at you in that way, I think. What does it mean to you as representing our country, the possibility of going to the Olympics, and also being uh, this superhero to a lot of kids? What does that mean to you, and what do you plan on doing with it after uh, this crazy ride comes to an end?
I mean, I think it's everything for me to be an inspiration to kids. I mean, going to the Olympics for sure is a lot. Like, that's a big goal that I have. It's not the only goal though, and I know that after the Olympics passes, there's going to be a lot more that I want to do in snowboarding, and a lot more that I, have in mind beyond the Olympics. That's just kind of like a big stepping stone. I'd say the ultimate goal, yeah, for me is just to inspire the youth and to kind of make snowboarding a better place. Not that it isn't already. Like, snowboarding's my favorite thing ever. It's my favorite community, and I love it to death. But that's all I really care to do, is to, you know, come into snowboarding and leave it more fun, more accessible for kids. And I'd say that's like the biggest reason I want to go to the Olympics, is just because that's such a great way to kind of um, get put on the world stage to do that type of thing. Like, it's a lot easier to inspire millions of people and to make snowboarding seen by millions of people in the Olympics rather than posting clips on Instagram, So I think it means everything to me for sure. And there is pressure, definitely. Like, you gotta really be on your toes and make sure you're not doing or saying anything stupid when you're a pro athlete, because you got a lot of eyes on you. Like, especially where I'm from, Telluride, it's a super small town and everyone knows everyone there. So anything that you do kind of, gets put out there into the town. So I'm used to like having all eyes on me, or, everyone in my town has all eyes on them because it's so small, like I just said. So it's nothing like too new for me. I'm kind of used to like having that quote pressure, I guess. But I don't know. For me, it feels right to like do the right thing and to say the right things, or like, I'm not trying to go behind anyone's back and do anything to hide from the world. So I guess there's pressure, but it's not too bad.
Well, I think as long as you are being consistent and you are living a life of integrity, you don't have anything to hide. You shouldn't, at least.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and I don't know. For me, like, as I said, that's the main goal for me, is to get more kids into snowboarding and to just be a mentor to more kids. So that's all I'm doing anyway, is just learning how to, be a better person for the world. So
That's incredible. What about us? We talk about getting kids, teaching them how to snowboard. How do you feel about teaching 35-year-old adults, men, to snowboard?
yeah.
That's-
I mean, I actually teach a lot of parents how to skateboard. I don't really coach snowboarding much at all, but I coach a ton of skateboarding. So if I taught a 35-year-old how to snowboard, it wouldn't be anything new for me. I mean, it'd be my pleasure. I mean, I taught Jesse Stewart how to snowboard, and he fell in love with it. So that was really cool. And the biggest thing for me is make snowboarding a more welcoming place and a more accessible sport. Because right now it's hard to get into snowboarding for a lot of people. It's super expensive and it's intimidating too. Because you watch the X Games and we're doing 1260s and 1440s in the half pipe, and the crowd is like, "Oh my God, I'm never gonna be able to do that. I'm not even gonna try to go snowboarding." So, it's kind of like a mission to kind of change that and make it a little more more welcoming, I guess. Like I said, less intimidating, less like gymnastics like.
That's pretty cool, man. I was really looking forward to it. Because this weekend we were actually supposed to be meeting up together in Winter Park, Colorado for the event to work with the NSCD and veterans and with disabilities and stuff. And I was hoping that you would give me a little lesson so I could get down the hill without falling at least. But
no, that was gonna be awesome. It's a bummer that didn't work out.
With this virus stuff, that's not going to happen. But I'm sure we'll have a chance in the future to do something like that. And
I'm sure.
So it's talking about the NSCD and veterans. How you do a lot of work with the military and veterans, right?
Yeah, I definitely have done a little bit in the last year or so. Not a ton, but ever since I met Jesse, he's kind of kept me in the loop, and he's always hit me up with opportunities to go meet veterans and kind of talk about what I do, and for them to talk to me about what they do and how we can kind of share each other's knowledge or use each other's knowledge to our power and stuff. And there's a lot of similarities between athletes and veterans. And but yeah, I got to go out to Fort Carson and talk to the veterans there, and I went to in San Diego too, and I've met some cool people in the military through Jesse, and learned a lot about what they do. So it's been a pleasure.
There's a lot of similarities between veterans and professional athletes. What are the similarities? What do you see it's similar? Because I myself am a member of the military, and I'm not a professional athlete, but I'm interested just going to hear your opinion on that. What similarities do you see?
Oh man, there's so many. I mean, what Jesse and I or the way Jesse compares us to people in the military is he says we're a lot like Rangers. And I'd say the way that especially in half pipe snowboarding, it's so technical and it's really precise, and everything has kind of got to line up super well with the way you turn your snowboard and the way your body is built up, and it's all about the little things being perfect in order to make the run come together. So in a half pipe run, for example, your drop in determines how they're where you drop in and how much speed you get when you drop in determines how much speed you're going to have for your run and how high you're going to go out of the pipe. So it's right off the bat, that little thing right there will play such a big role in your run. And it's the same thing with with a mission. That first objective in the mission, if it doesn't play out perfectly, then the next thing might fall through. And Jesse's always kind of I remember he showed us this last winter. He showed us a full mission, and bear with me because I would need a refresh to really understand or really remember all the right words and stuff. But he pretty much told us it's the same thing in the military. If you have a mission or an objective that's given to you, you need to the little things or the big things.
You're talking about a mission for the military and all the planning that goes into it. Every piece is there. Every contingency is you can think of is going to be mitigated as much as possible and eliminate as many risks as possible. And there's a similarity between that and snowboarding. When you come in on the half pipe, the speed determines that, right? And if everything's not planned, there's a domino effect.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're snowboarding, you're going to have one objective, right? It's to score the highest score possible.
So yeah, in snowboarding and the contests only though, when we're just riding, the last thing we're thinking of is doing the best or getting the best score. But yeah, when we're competing, the whole goal is to complete your run and land it to the best of your ability. So the way we, especially in half pipe, and I guess in slopestyle too, which is the other discipline where it's jumps and rails, it's a lot like an operational order where there's a bunch of steps that go into play in order to achieve that goal or achieve that result. And it all kind of starts immediately, like with your drop in, for example, in the half pipe. Where you drop in on the half pipe is going to determine how fast you're going to go into your first hit and how big you're going to go into your first hit. And your first hit really sets the tone for your whole run. So all those little things that go into, your edging and your snowboarding, it all plays a role in your whole run. And if that first hit gets messed up, it might screw up your fourth or your fifth hit, or it might screw up your next hit. So it's like one little thing always has to kind of come together. It's all about the little things. That's the way I look at it, is the small things and the big things. And it's not really about just doing one thing perfectly. It's about, kind of achieving excellence in your run. The difference of excellence and success is excellence is doing every single little thing to the best of your ability, making everything as perfect as possible. And that's, you guys have to do every step in your objective order or operational order in order to, for all you guys to come out safe and alive. For us, we got to do the same thing. Obviously, we may not die, but we might, miss the podium or miss the final, or
You might die. I've seen you guys go off those half pipes, man. Like, you land on your head, game over. Like there's
yeah.
a danger that is present in both of these arenas that we're talking about. And one thing I've
sure.
through being in the military for almost 12 years now is nothing ever goes according to plan. And it may not be the first step. It might not be the second, but there's always going to be something thrown in there that makes you have to readjust. And I'm sure that happens in snowboarding. So yeah, maybe you come in a little bit fast or too slow on your initial drop in, but you still have to adjust in that brief moment, right? And that the initial change from your plan isn't necessarily going to determine your outcome. So when you have you drop in, right, and say everything's not right, things are off, something's off just a little bit, how do you make that adjustment mentally and then physically to say, okay, I can still do this, I can still be successful?
I mean, that all kind of boils down to like your preparation, I guess, and your understanding that a lot of the time something might go wrong, and you might land a trick a little bit too deep in the half pipe, or you might land a little bit on your heel edge or on the wrong edge, and that'll screw up your next hit. And so you kind of just got to be, like, the way I look at it is you just got to be a really, really good snowboarder outside of the half pipe, because the best snowboarders are the ones that are able to kind of make decisions on the fly and like, oh, I accidentally under rotated this trick, but I know how to pump hard to the flat bottom, so I'm going to have enough speed to do this cab double cork. So, I mean, there's the physical side of like making corrections and being able to adjust, but then there's the mental side too. Some people, if they take a crash in practice, it'll be really hard for them to get out of that. They'll get really scared from that mentally, and then it'll affect their contest run, because they're like, oh, I totally died on the frontside 1080 in practice, and that's all I'm thinking about now. And then their contest run falls apart because they're stuck too far in the past. So it's kind of just like all about staying present, I'd say. And, you got to be willing to go in any which direction. You might land your run perfectly, or you might totally blow it. And you got to be able to move forward regardless. And you got to know how to move forward physically, and you got to know how to move forward mentally, because you might have all the physical ability in the world to make adjustments, but if you can't mentally keep it together, then then your physical adjustments don't really matter at all.
The word that's coming to my mind as you're saying this is resilience. You have to be resilient. And so
totally.
We're talking about military operations, we're talking about snowboarding, but these things we're talking about, it's this way for life too. They're the same principles to be successful and to grow and become the person that you want to be. It's the same. They're universal truths is what I've come to learn. that.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, we're going through it right now with the quarantine stuff and with the coronavirus. Like, life changed super, super fast for everybody around the world. And the ones that are going to really come out in a good place from this are the ones that are going to be able to kind of dig deep and take advantage of the adjustments that are like the changes that the world has given us. The ones that are the most resilient, the ones that are able to make adjustments, are the ones that are going to be able to get through this hard time, because it's hard for everybody.
Yeah, I don't know anybody
I mean,
been affected by this, and if they are, I
yeah,
think it's going to hit them harder, because eventually every one of us is going to suffer a little bit. But I'm of the belief that we can't control external things that affect our life, but we can control the way that we react to them, and
yeah,
our reaction will determine whether we grow from this experience or whether we deteriorate and fall apart individually and collectively as a whole. How
totally.
I think we need to come together as a society, as a country, to use this as an opportunity for growth, rather than just allow ourselves to be victims of the circumstances that we're in.
Oh man, I mean, I'd say it'll be different for everybody, but like every single person, every person has something in their life that like they haven't given much attention to. I know for me, there's a lot of things right now that like have kind of taken a back seat in my life, because I'm so busy with snowboarding and with traveling and doing all that stuff. So I'd say like the biggest thing that we could all do as a community and as a world is just kind of get really quiet and still, and like kind of dig deep emotionally and spiritually to really figure out like what it is in our lives that deserve more attention, and what it is that we can kind of, or like how can we grow in the next couple of years. Because like, you know, we live in a world now that's like changing so fast, and there's really nothing ever stopping, you know what I mean? Like there's never any break in all the crazy cool stuff that's going on in this world. And this right now is a huge break in entertainment, in sports, and like the Olympics just got postponed. Like we're all pretty much being forced into this corner of complete quiet. And I think it's a perfect time for us to, you know, whether that's like learning how to meditate or learning how to, you know, take care of our bodies better, or starting a new project that we've always wanted to do. Like there's like the whole world is just taking a break right now. And I think it's a perfect time for everyone to just take a break themselves. And
Yeah, it's really forcing us to change our priorities and our values, the things that we value. I think it's giving us time to reassess where we put value in things, and
totally.
that only can happen in stillness. I think if we're panicking and we're worried about, oh, I don't have 12,000 rolls of toilet paper, like some people out there, we're not allowing ourselves to have that stillness. But I think that in that stillness, that moment where we reflect on, okay, what do I need to do? How can I grow? That's where we're going to find the ability to not only just overcome this, but to grow. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. No, yeah, I totally agree. I mean, there's so many people out there that like will just benefit so much from kind of slowing down a lot. And a lot of people out there, you know, me being one of them, and pretty much all of us, like we all have more room for improvement as far as creating ourselves. And I think this is a perfect time. Like I know meditation's been a huge thing in my life. And there's no better time to meditate right now, I think, than now, because there's nothing else for us to do. We have to sit at home all day. And a lot of people, they can really create themselves through this whole situation. They can learn more about themselves. And I know that I've learned the most about myself in the quietest of times. So I don't know. I kind of got lost there for a second, but I think you know what I mean. Like there's no better time right now to just totally quiet down and just, you know, I'd say it's a really good time right now too for everyone to just connect with each other more and set aside like all these stupid things that we worry about, like things that are separating us, whether it's race or age or class or your job, like really all these things that separate us on a day-to-day life don't matter at all now, because it doesn't matter if you're Kanye West or just some guy that works at a grocery store in Colorado. Like there's a virus out there that could kill you, and I'd say it's important for everyone to kind of come together and set aside differences, and that's something that will probably happen through this whole. I mean, I know I've seen it already, and that'll be huge, for some rich person that usually was disrespectful to servers or grocery store workers, to just kind of put their differences aside and like, come together and be there for each other. Like that'll be huge.
Yeah, I think we just have to support each other. We have to look out for one another. Well, we can still do that without being face to face. Checking our neighbors, checking in on our family and our friends, and if we see someone struggling or without, I guess, going without, that's an opportunity for us to reach out to them and show them that they matter and that they're not alone for this, and offer this assistance to them in the way that we can offer it. And
yeah, totally.
There's one word for that, and I think that's just love. We just have to love each other. Yeah,
and exactly. Then there's nothing you can do right now to like escape what's going on in the world. Like every person is, ordered to stay home. It doesn't matter if you're,
it doesn't matter how much money you still get used to.
Yeah.
That it's kind of the playing field has been leveled for life, I guess. Right? I don't know.
Yeah, there's no shortcut. There's no shortcut out of it. There's no easy way out. Like, and that's going to be huge for just human beings to kind of, as I said, put their differences aside and just, kind of all be in the same position, and remember that like we're all human and we're all going to die someday, and it's not going to matter how much money you have or what job you have or what kind of car you have. Like, we're all going to end up battling this or going through the same thing someday. So,
yeah, I agree. So I think that's where we have an opportunity we've never had before to use this, have a catalyst to better ourselves, this generation especially. And I think for this generation, it's very similar to what we history teaches us about during World War II and the Great Depression, and how they had to come together to fight a common enemy. And now that enemy is different than what we're seeing now. We can't even see our enemy with the naked eye, right? But
totally,
I think it's going to take the same level of commitment to each other to overcome this. It's just like our forefathers did.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully history will look back on us and not say, well, we're the generation that fell apart and lost their minds because they were afraid of getting sick. But rather, we're a generation of people who came together as one in purpose and lifted up each other and supported each other and overcame something that could have eliminated a huge population of the earth.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's another thing like that you could totally touch on with like, what are you going to do during this period? Like there's a lot of opportunity for us right now to do a lot of great things within ourselves. And like, I know for the younger generation, our kids will be asking us about this era someday. They'll, 20, 30 years from now, they'll be asking us like, what did you do during the coronavirus breakout when the world shut down for a month?
Mm-hmm.
Or hopefully it's only a month. What are you gonna tell your kids? Like,
month. We're manifesting it right now. It's not going to go longer than a month.
Yeah,
but
totally.
It's how do we answer that?
Yeah, like, you're either gonna tell them, I've watched like 300 Netflix videos or TV shows and did nothing, or you can be like, I started this online business. I started doing this online yoga class, and I, the list goes on. Like, for me, like I'm taking a real estate class right now to get my real estate license just because like figured I might use that someday. And like, you know, I want to be able to tell my kids someday, like, oh yeah, I got my real estate license. I got a couple personal records in the gym, like for certain Olympic lifts. And I got to snowboard in the backcountry a ton and film a backcountry video. And that's something I've always wanted to do. Not saying that that's what I've done yet, but like, you know, there's so much opportunity for us right now to do a lot of great things through this whole coronavirus outbreak. So
Yeah, absolutely.
may as well make your story cool rather than boring and filled with Netflix.
Yeah. I binged Netflix for a month, right? So as you're talking about this, it reminds me of 9/11. And when 9/11 happened, I was a junior in high school. And I remember the moment that it happened when I found out about it. I walked into my geometry class in the morning. The TV was on. There were people saying like, oh, the Twin Towers got hit by airplane. And I was like, why is this a big deal? Like, I didn't understand what was happening. And then I went into the counselor's office shortly thereafter, and I watched the second plane hit. And I was like, oh, wow. And then we realized what it was. And I didn't realize at that moment how much that was going to shift, that shift in society was going to affect my life. That was one of the factors that led me to my career in the military right now. I wanted to be there for my country, wanted to support it. And I'm not saying that was the reason why I joined, but all these ingredients come together to make our lives, right? Just like when we're making a cake or something. Yeah. If you don't have all of these ingredients, it's not going to turn out. It's going to turn out differently. And I think right now we are at that point where we get to define ourselves and define us as a generation, as a people. And it's imperative that we are there for each other and we support each other. If your neighbor doesn't have any toilet paper, take them some toilet paper, you know, I mean, you know, don't take everything. We need to be there for each other. What does service mean to you? And how does service work? How has that affected you, changed you for better, especially with on the platform that you're on now, and this opportunity you have to be in front of so many other people? How has service been a benefit in your life, and what does that mean to you?
I mean, service, that's everything. Like like you can do a lot of great things in this world and stuff and achieve a lot of great things. And, you know, like I could go win an Olympic gold medal or win the X Games, but like what good is that gold medal going to do if you didn't make this world a better place in the process? So for me, like, you know, you could look at music, for example. Music has changed the lives of a lot of people, and it's kind of like made a lot of people the people they are today. Like, I know music, for me at least, has been a huge role in my life. And like, you look at famous musicians out there like Michael Jackson or whatever, like they made tons of money and they won awards and stuff, but they also changed the lives of a lot of people, and that's why they're who they are. And that's kind of, I think, the greatest people in this world are the ones that are, you know, living their dream, but also just inspiring people and setting a good example for people. And then, like, it sounds like a cliche, but like, I don't know, for me, like snowboarding, there's so many things I want to do, but I don't want to just take from snowboarding, and I don't want to just take from life. I want to, you know, I have goals for myself that involve like winning certain things or like, you know, landing certain tricks. But like the biggest goal for me is, you know, make the world a better place. That's about as simple as it gets. Snowboarding is just a way that, like, a platform that I use, and I'm sure there's gonna be more platforms that I use down the road. But yeah, I'd say if you're not being of service, then you're kind of just being very selfish. And I'd say if you're getting into certain businesses, or like if your motivation is just to win a gold medal or like to win an award for filming a certain video part in snowboarding, then you're super selfish. Like, you know, you should want to go film that video part in that movie to, you know, of course, fulfill something you've always wanted to do, but also to get the little 10-year-old at home watching that snowboard film excitement and inspiration. You should want to go win that Olympic gold medal to, you know, show the same thing, like to make that little kid in Minnesota want to learn how to snowboard.
Is that your drive, where your drive comes from to win a gold medal, let's say, to inspire other people to be better?
I'd say so. I'd say the biggest thing for me, like wanting to win a gold medal in like the Olympics or in the X Games or just a pro snowboard contest in general, yeah, it would be to like kind of like we didn't talk about my background a ton yet, but like I don't come from like a family with tons of money, and like my parents weren't sending me around the world to go train in the half pipe and like paying $50,000 a year for like coaching and stuff. I kind of came from a very like simple, like it's not like I had a terrible upbringing at all. Like I just lived a very normal life. I was a very normal kid, but I did this thing that like required a lot of money, and like, you know, snowboarding is a very like I guess it's a very wealthy sport. But I made it happen. I figured out ways to achieve this thing that did not seem possible at all growing up, because again, I was just coming from a blue collar family, and I just want to show the world and prove to kids like, hey, like it doesn't matter if you have adversity in your life or like obstacles you got to jump, like you can do these things. So that's, I guess, yeah, it's my biggest motivation, is to kind of like break that whole stigma of like, oh, if you're trying to be an Olympic snowboarder, you're a rich kid that lives in Summit County that and your parents just send you around the world and you do online school. I don't want that to be like the label that snowboarders get if you compete. I want it to go in a different direction, where it's like, oh yeah, you can be a normal kid from Telluride and not have a half pipe to ride in at all growing up, and still go to the Olympics and, you know, still be on the U.S. snowboard team and achieve this goal or achieve this dream, you know. And I want kids that don't even snowboard to look at my story and be inspired from that and be like, oh, like this kid did what he did, so like I can be from Ohio and learn how to be a pro surfer, but I'm gonna have to like do certain things to get out to California and Hawaii to learn how to surf, blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not the best example, but you know what I mean, right?
No, I totally understand, and that's kind of one of the reasons why I was so been so excited to have you on the show. Is what we're talking about is character, not accomplishment. And I don't care to interview people or talk to someone who has these incredible accomplishments, but their character is lacking. Let's just leave it at that.
Mm-hmm.
Character speaks more than accomplishment. We value,
Yeah.
I think as a society, we've come to value accomplishment more than character. We hear more about it. And I think that's one of the opportunities that this quarantine, this virus is offering us, is to value character more than accomplishment. And I think that you're the epitome of that you essentially grew up had nothing growing up, no opportunities, right? You blue collar, you had to make it happen and to get what you wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And
For sure.
But your focus is on inspiring other people to have opportunities they normally wouldn't have. And I grew up blue collar too, you know, like there were times when my family was dirt poor. I remember I had a pair of shoes that my grandma had mailed to me from Washington State that were pink, had hot pink on. It was the early 90s. And my mom told me that they were boy shoes and they were just pink. And I wore them to school and kids made fun of me because I had girl shoes. And I didn't realize this until a couple of years ago, that they actually were girl shoes. I didn't realize how bad the situation really was, that I had pink girl shoes when I was in kindergarten, first grade. And
for sure.
And I certainly don't live a life of privilege or anything like that. But what I have accomplished is because I went and got it. And in no way, shape, or form am I trying to brag about myself saying I'm anything special. But we live in a country where these opportunities are available to everyone if we're willing to put in the work. And
totally.
And just that you've put in the work too, to be not only successful, but excellent at something that is intimidating to a lot of people and viewed as impossible. And I think that that's just really outstanding.
Thanks, man. Yeah. Yeah. And I'd say like, you know, for me, it's not like I mean, I'd say I definitely did have opportunities growing up. They just weren't like I just didn't have the same background as a lot of kids did that I'm competing with today. Um, I come from Telluride, which is an awesome ski town. So like I did have one of the best ski resorts ever to grow up at, but it didn't have a half pipe and didn't have a world-class park. But what I did have is I did have a mountain that forced me to be an adaptable snowboarder because we're riding on steep pitches and you know, super gnarly terrain. So I did have, you know, I didn't have everything that like a lot of kids do have in snowboarding these days to become a pro half pipe rider or a pro slopestyle rider. But what I did have is I did have parents that loved me, that only wanted me to do things that I was excited to do. I did have a super awesome mentor growing up, Jason, who kind of made a lot of things happen for me and introduced me to the right people in snowboarding. And I did have, you know, I had food on the table, I had clothes on my back, and I had a snowboard under my feet. So yes, I didn't have a lot of the opportunities that I may have wished that I had growing up, but I did have the basics. And I think that's a big reason why I'm where I'm at now, is I did appreciate what I did have rather than look at what I didn't have. And all I had to do is just think outside of the box and get creative in order to figure out how I'm going to make that trip happen next month, or how I'm going to make it to this contest next year. Like it's not like those things weren't offered to me, or those opportunities weren't there for me. I just had to really dig deep and like think outside of the box and like get creative in order to make a lot of things happen. So I just didn't want to make it sound like I grew up with nothing, because I did have
No, I
a
don't
great.
that either. You know,
No, yeah, you're good.
I mean, I had food and I always had clothes, but I didn't have opportunities to go play baseball or
Exactly.
camps and basketball camps and stuff like that. We may do with what we have. And I think that these experiences that we have, or we have to, opportunities aren't presented to us in a way where they're just given freely. That forges our character. That's the ability to make things happen when initially it doesn't seem possible, is a situation that most people find themselves in life, unless you're come from crazy money, right? That if you want something, you have to make it happen.
Yeah, I agree totally. Yeah, I mean, that's the biggest thing for me, is I just want to prove to kids out there that have the same dream as me, like, hey, just because so-and-so, you know, parents have millions of dollars and can send their kids to Mount Hood to train all summer, doesn't mean you need that, or it doesn't mean that like your whole life depends on, you know, having the same opportunities as other kids do. All you got to do is pretty much double down on the stuff that you do have and get creative in order to make this opportunity happen, or to get that resource. You know, that's just all I had to do, because I did get a lot of great opportunities growing up, but sometimes it would just be a little harder to make those opportunities all come together. And like back to what you were saying earlier about like my motivation to like win a gold medal someday at the Olympics, I'd say the best way to explain my motivation is I think about how I want to be remembered in snowboarding, and how I want to be remembered in life. For me, like, I don't want to be remembered as like the snowboarder that just kind of took and like won the gold medal at the Olympics and then bounced and never gave back anything. I want to be looked at as like, oh yeah, Lucas was that rider that, you know, did great or super sick stuff in the half pipe and filmed cool video parts and won a gold medal at the Olympics and the X Games. And he also got a ton of kids into snowboarding and brought some style into his riding and made snowboarding a little more fun. Like, you know, that's an example of what I'd hope someday. That's like the goal, is to be remembered as just a person that made snowboarding doper for the people that come after me, not the dude that made a couple $1 million and left.
Yeah, no, you want to give back to the community that helped you, and expand that community, right? You want to create more opportunities for
Yeah.
people. And that's incredibly awesome, man. And that shows the humility that you have and speaks volumes of your character.
Thanks,
I
man.
want to talk a little bit about perfectionism and why sometimes we think we have to have perfection. But so I think this, correct me if I'm wrong on any of this information, but in the last Olympics, Shaun White, who you work with and have mutual friends with and stuff, he really did something quite incredible. So he had 2 failed runs, and then at age 31, he executed a perfect 28. Let me just read this. This was what my friend sent me. He said, "Hey, if you're talking to Lucas Foster, ask him about this." So I'm going to read you what he sent me because it's really good. He says, "I watched in amazement after 2 failed runs. 31-year-old Shaun White executed a perfect 28 seconds of snowboarding, 5 jumps, 5 smooth landings, 15 and a half revolutions of airborne corks. He carved at the bottom of the half pipe and was awarded the score of 100. Only 2 perfect scores have ever been given, and Shaun White has both of them." It was somewhat controversial, with many saying that the judges should not have given him a perfect score. If you were to ask Shaun White, or you yourself, is there such thing as a perfect score, or is there always room for improvement?
I'd say no, there's not room for, or like, no, there's always room for improvement. I don't think that perfect scores should be a thing personally, but I totally remember that that instance where he got the perfect 100. That was at like the second to last Olympic qualifier for the last Olympics. It was in Snowmass, Colorado, and yeah, I mean he fell the first 2 runs of the contest, and like pretty much switched up. From what I know, I think he switched his run up a bit, like did a run that he's never done before. But yeah, it was like perfect. It was the last run of the contest. I'm trying to think. I don't know if he was the last person to drop or not. I'm pretty sure he was, though. He qualified first, so that means he's the last to drop. That's where the perfect 100s usually happen, is when it's the last rider of the whole event, and they lay down an amazing run. They would never give you a perfect 100 like halfway through the contest when there's more riders to drop. That doesn't happen. But like I'd say in those cases, like a lot of people, they do get all worked up over the perfect 100s. Personally, I don't care. I think they're like, it's cool and stuff. Like Shaun White has gotten a perfect 100, and Chloe Kim got a perfect 100 one time. And it kind of just adds to like the hype of the contest and stuff, and like it makes for a cool story for sure. But I mean, yeah, at the time that was about as perfect as it gets for sure. There were runs that happened later in that year at the Olympics that were better than what Shaun did to get a perfect 100. But at that time, it was damn near perfect, and there was no riders to drop after him. Like he won the contest already. So yeah,
See that
was
calling that perfect is overhyped, or do you think he earned that? I'm just trying to understand a little bit more about where your mindset's on this is.
My mindset is there's literally never ever a time like snowboarding is such an art form that like you can't really ever say anything's perfect, because a lot of people have different ideas of what looks cool in snowboarding. Some people hate Shaun White's style, for example. So some people love it. So some people think that was perfect, but some people will be like, "Oh no, that wasn't perfect. Like he could have tweaked this grab differently. He could have landed that trick a little more gracefully." Like it's such an opinionated sport that I don't think that perfect scores really like are a thing. It's not like gymnastics where there's like trick books with like, oh, this trick is this score. I guess if that makes sense. Like
So you're
I
saying
don't think
perfection is perception, or perfectionism is open to interpretation and is based on personal preference and your perception.
Exactly. Yeah, like style is such a big piece in snowboarding. and everyone has a different taste and style. Like I said, some people hate Sean's style, some people love it. So some people have a different argument to pick, but I'd say those moments are cool though, here and there for sure. Like perfect score every couple of years, last run of the contest, amazing run, puts down a trick that you've never seen. Like, yeah, give it to him, give him a 100. But I'd say if that happened too much, like if that happened a couple times a year, then it would be kind of like, you know, a bigger deal to some people. And I personally would be like, yeah, stop with the perfect 100. It's like, but I don't know.
So
that was cool. That was a cool moment.
it is really cool. I mean, certainly he is talented. I'll just say that. He's the best.
Oh yeah,
That time he was the best, right? And
totally.
that was kind of the standard for everyone to beat, right? It was beat Shaun White. And
Yeah.
but let's talk about that and how we into the outside of snowboarding. Do you think that it's the same, that there's no such thing as perfect in life, in whether it's
Yeah, no way.
entrepreneur or parenting or your own talent, your own profession that you're in? Do you think that we are striving for perfection when we should be striving for something else, or what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, of course, there's certain professions I think that where perfection is very like real. Like, you know, being a doctor, you got to be perfect at performing surgery, or else you might kill the person. So there's certain things where, but like as far as life goes and just like living through your life, there's never ever such thing as perfect. I'd say like life is very art like, and I'd say anytime your artistic side of your life is being like activated when you're doing something, there's no such thing as perfect, because I don't know, like there's never a perfect piece of art, you know, like you can never paint a perfect picture. You can never like, I don't know, what am I trying to say with this? Yeah, like life is an art form, and you can never paint a perfect picture ever. You can never draw a perfect you know, piece of art. So there's always ways you can do things differently. There's always ways you can put a little twist on something. There's always ways to make a certain thing better in your life. I don't know. That's a good question. That's a really good question.
So if we're striving for perfectionism, I think a lot of us are probably doing that subconsciously. What should we be striving for instead of perfection? If because perfection is open to interpretation and it's based on
Yeah,
then it's not really.
I'd say strive for authenticity. I'd say that's when everything's perfect. If you want to like bring the perfect word into it, like you're being perfect when you're just being yourself and being like as authentic as you can be. And like I'd say the most beautiful things in this world are always have imperfections, and it's oftentimes the imperfections that make it so cool and so like memorable. Like there's people I know in snowboarding that totally hate certain people's riding because they're like, oh, it looks like that person is about to die, or it looks like that person, oh, that person almost blew up in the flat bottom. Like, you know, people like there's skateboarders, for example, like this guy named Pedro Barros from Brazil. He's like in my opinion, the sickest, most awesome skateboarder ever. But he's super out of control sometimes, and he'll land tricks super out of control. But that's what makes him Pedro Barros. That's his name. Like people will remember him for his style and his authenticity. He's not out there trying to be perfect and land a trick perfect. He's out there skating the way that he skates, and doesn't matter if he lands a trick perfect or not at all. And like I'd say, yeah, I mean, you got to just strive to be authentic. People will totally be able to see if you're working too hard to be perfect.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Authenticity. I like that. Just being who you are. You're perfect.
yeah,
who you are.
yeah. And oftentimes when you are trying to be too perfect, you look too robotic. Like, you know, like I guess that's another way or another reason why snowboarding doesn't have perfection and why perfect scores, I guess, aren't necessarily a bigger thing in snowboarding is because, like, it's oftentimes the people that are a little sketchy or not doing things completely perfect that kind of put a cool twist to their riding and stuff. They're doing it different than the person that did it before them. They're doing it with a different grab or with a different tweak or whatever. Some of the best snowboarders in the world are the ones that are doing things super super sketchy, but the style looks cool. The way they did it, I don't know. I'm kind of getting off on a tangent.
No, it's not a tangent because I think it's relevant because if we look at life, right, let's take what we just talked about and take it outside of snowboarding, and we look at look at the people who are successful in life. Maybe they're eccentric, or maybe they seem a little bit odd, or maybe someone's but they're just being who they are. They're being authentic. That's success. We can look at that as success instead of looking at success as money or things that you've accomplished or things that you're in your possession of. But the way that the impact that you have on other people, we can look at their style, their lifestyle of how they carry themselves. I think there's beauty in that, and that's open for interpretation too, as well. Just like we're talking about this perfect 100 score, we can't score a perfect 100. If a perfect 100 is open for interpretation in snowboarding, then perfectionism or achieving a perfect score in life is going to be open to interpretation as well. And we need to find the beauty and recognize it just for what it is. That's incredible.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
I don't know. I think we could do a whole episode just on that, that topic right there of perfectionism.
I agree. Like, I'm a good example for instance, like for my half pipe snowboarding, since I didn't grow up riding half pipe much, I didn't have a lot of the fundamentals that a lot of riders have growing up. So still to this day, I'm still working out some of my fundamentals. And there are, like, when it comes to fundamentals in snowboarding, there's definitely ways to, like, you could say that there's a perfect way to do a toe side churn or a heel side churn. That's up for debate, but I think that is true. For certain fundamentals in anything in life, there's a right and a wrong way to do a certain fundamental. But for me, like, I'm lacking some fundamentals in my half pipe snowboarding. They're getting better and better each season. But some people will, like, think that I'm super sketchy when I'm doing a certain trick in a half pipe run or something, and I may not do that trick perfectly. And some people might think that that's, like, super lame or super stupid, but a lot of people come up to me and, like, hey, I like your style. Like, I saw you do that double crippler and I thought you were about to land on the deck. You were like 20 feet out and I thought you were going to blow up and die, but it was awesome and you held it together. Like, some people remember me and my snowboarding for the imperfections. So that's oftentimes when, like, striving for perfection is just stupid, because you might be remembered for doing something that just, got people on their toes and made people like, whoa. And
just one time.
I mean, sometimes that's worked in my favor, like in my favor big time. Like, I remember one of the first like really big pro contests I ever did was the US Open in 2019. And I did the trick I just said, the double crippler, like the highest out of the pipe I've ever done it. And I did it kind of in a different way than most people do the trick. It kind of had a different access on it. And people were like, whoa, like that looked really weird. But people after the contest were like, that was awesome. Like, that was the craziest looking double crippler I've ever seen, but it was sick. Like, people were stoked on it. And I didn't do the trick perfect at all. I did it way different than a lot of people have seen it. But, a lot of people kind of remember me for that day. People remember that trick. And, so there's so many times where being not perfect is just like the best thing you could ever do.
I like that a lot. I really do. That hits home. There's a lot of truth in what you're saying, that just being known for one moment of awesomeness isn't a life that you want to live, right? But it's good to have those moments because then the people will remember you. But
Yeah.
to consistently do incredible things should be the goal.
Yeah.
Not
Totally.
perfection all the time, but just accepting ourselves for who we are, being authentic with who we are, and not trying to change ourselves to fit the mold of what we think other people want us to be, or what we think we should be as well.
Exactly. And that's kind of going on in snowboarding right now in half pipe, or at least it's starting to go away now. But like, there's a lot of riders out there that kind of just like learn certain tricks because it does well in a contest or something. They're like, oh, I need to learn back-to-back double corks because Shaun White did that to win gold in Vancouver in 2010. So I have to do that trick. So they learn it just like him, and they kind of like just start mimicking other people, and they kind of lose their sense of style and their artistic side of themselves in their snowboarding, and like they kind of look more like robots. And like we're starting to see that kind of not be rewarded in contests because we're at an age right now where, like, you know, judges, for example, they're sick of seeing the same tricks over and over, and they're getting more excited to see different things, people having their own style, doing their own grabs on certain tricks, or just, you know, doing tricks that we don't see too often. Like, we're starting to see the people that strive for perfection in half pipe snowboarding get less and less rewarded. But yet there are still some riders that are like absolutely picture perfect, but it's all in their fundamentals. I think that's something we'll never lose, is like the way that you prepare. There's perfection for preparation, I think, but there's never perfection in the way that you piece together your character with your physical abilities and stuff. You know what I mean? Like, we look at, for example, there's this guy in snowboarding right now named Scotty James, who's pretty much the new, like, unstoppable guy since Shaun White left. Scotty does everything perfect. His fundamentals are perfect. The way that he takes off in the half pipe is perfect. But sometimes he will have a little, like he'll do different grabs, for example, on certain double corks or certain tricks, and he'll have a different selection of tricks. And some people might think like, oh, that's not a perfect half pipe run because he could have done an extra 360 right there. But no, he's choosing to, you know, pick his own, he's picking his own tricks. He's picking his own way of doing certain things in his half pipe run. So like, his fundamentals are perfect to everyone. You can't argue with that. But like, you know, he's being an artist in the way he does his tricks in the air and the selection. Like, there's so many examples.
Yeah, the uniqueness of us as individual people is based on I would say it's based on the mistakes that we make and how we learn from them and how we recover from them.
Yeah.
We talked about this run that Shaun White did, right? He scored a perfect 100. We've talked a little bit about making adjustments to when things don't go the way they're supposed to, and how we can be resilient in that manner. How have you, in your snowboarding career, how have you learned from your mistakes, and how have they made you a better athlete?
I mean, I'd say your mistakes are your classroom. And you never really lose. That's something that I've learned from mentors, is like, there's no such thing as losing. Like, you either win or you learn, is a way you can look at it. So like, for me, anytime I fall in a contest or anytime I don't, and that happened a lot this winter. I had like 3 contests in a row where I didn't complete a full run. And when you don't land your full run in snowboarding, your chances of doing well are shot 100%. So like, it's really common sense. Like, if you don't land a trick, you figure out what you did wrong and you make that correction and you just move on. And that's as simple as it is. But yeah, like, I've had a lot of mistakes in my riding, I guess. I've had a lot of mistakes in my snowboarding and a lot of things that I could have done differently, I guess. But you just got to remember it's about the journey, not the destination. And, I can look back like this year at the X Games, for example, like that was a huge goal of mine to go to the X Games, and I finally did that. And I rode not that great there. I didn't land a single run, and that was really hard for me. But even if I did land every run at X Games and placed well or whatever, I would, be stoked about that for a few days. But then I'd be on to the next thing and wanting to figure out, all right, what's next? Like, what's the next mission? What's the next thing that I want to accomplish? It doesn't really matter whether you're winning or losing. Like, you're on a journey of becoming better. And yeah, I don't know. Like, you're never really going to be content no matter your result. At least for me, like the moment I do well in a contest, I'm excited, I'm happy, but boom, what's the next thing? Whenever you do bad in a contest or whenever you make a mistake or you lose, you know exactly what's next. It's easier to figure out what the next step is, in my opinion. It's hard to, once you reach the top, then you're really looking around to figure out where to go. But once you're not at the top yet, you know exactly what's next. You know exactly where you're going. So,
That's great. It's great advice for life, I think, too.
Yeah,
So
it's helped a lot. I mean, losing.
all these,
What's that?
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. All these things we're talking about are true for snowboarding as much as they are for life.
Yeah,
Where are you going to go
totally.
now that you've achieved this piece of success? So I know what are you currently ranked in the world right now in snowboard?
20th.
20th. So
20th
you're
right now.
the 20th best snowboarder in the entire world. I should have put this into your introduction. I should have asked
At least, I mean, in half pipe.
in half pipe.
And I don't know. I mean, just in contests, I guess there's so many amazing snowboarders out there. Like even guys, there's a lot of snowboarders out there that don't do contests that are just as amazing as the
Yeah.
people that you guys see in X Games and in the Olympics and stuff. But yeah, I guess like after this winter, based off of contest results, I'm 20th.
So let's talk about the journey that got you there. You said you didn't do well in the X Games. And that was kind of disappointing. What did you do to get to prepare yourself to get to the next competition? Because I know you accomplished something that was quite remarkable to get to be ranked number 20th. Can we talk a little bit about your preparation and then what happened at the next event?
Yeah, a big highlight of the season was before the X Games. That's like why I got invited to the X Games in the first place. Was the first 3 events of the season. I got 12th in the World Cup, which was like an okay result. It wasn't it wasn't my best performance, but I still placed okay. And then I podiumed at the next contest, the Revolution Tour. And then like those first 3 events of the season went well for me. But then after the X Games, well, actually before the X Games, I had another bad contest, like the biggest World Cup of the season, arguably, was in Switzerland. Same thing happened. I just didn't land my runs. I was having trouble with a certain trick. X Games didn't go well. The next contest didn't go well at all either. Like I had 3 in a row that just, my riding was like okay, but the tricks weren't coming together and I was just having a hard time getting through that. And I guess the way I got through all that was I just like really figured out, like I just kind of would come home and like sit down and be like, all right, what is making me fall? What am I doing on these tricks? What am I doing mentally to make myself not be able to put these tricks down? Because a lot of the time it was like a pressure situation where it's like I could do these tricks in the contest, but the pressure's getting to me and I'm having a hard time putting it down whenever it counts for whatever reason. But I don't know, man. I just put my head down and just worked my butt off for like a week in California at Mammoth and just literally did all the tricks that I was falling on in contests over and over and over, whether I liked it or not. And really just like, I don't know, just got back to having fun and snowboarding again too. I don't know. There was a lot that went into it, but yeah. And then I went to the World Cup in Canada, the final World Cup of the year, got 8th place there, which was my best result in a World Cup, and made the finals and everything at that event. So that was good. But yeah, it was just a combination of like getting out of my head, practicing tricks over and over that I was falling on, and just staying present too.
Yeah, I think staying present in the moment is key to success in anything in life. Anytime we take a step back and say, I don't want to deal with this, I don't want to do this, I'm going to check out. That's when we start to relapse in our progress. And
Totally.
So when you were in Canada at this competition, where were you ranked at going into that competition in the world? Had your rank changed?
Say that one more time.
When you got to
in Canada,
or you got there after these 3 events, these contests that you didn't do well in, where were you currently ranked in the world?
I was like 25th. So I wasn't like I guess at the beginning of this past winter, I was 35th. So like the results that I had before the X Games were working towards my ranking. It is for the World Snowboard Tour list that we are ranked on. It isn't really based off of accumulative results. It's based off your 3 best results in the last year. So like the X Games and the World Cups that I didn't do well in, that I was having trouble in, those didn't really like make me fall in rankings or anything, but people did jump ahead of me. So but yeah, I was like 25th, I think, after or before Canada, and then I did well in Canada and jumped up to like 21st, I think, and then some people dropped down. So that's kind of why I'm in 20th now.
So that's a pretty big jump, though, to jump 5 places.
Yeah.
Right. So it's your best runs. Let's talk a little bit about your run. What had to happen in your run to get that score that you got, and what was the score you got that jumped you from 21st and then to 20th?
Well, the score in Canada at the last contest, you mean?
Mm-hmm.
That actually, so like I made the finals and everything. I didn't actually score too well in the final. I landed my last run, my 3rd and final run, but I kind of put my hand down and hand dragged on the last trick. And anytime you put a hand down, or like if your butt drags a little bit in your run in half pipe, they deduct your from your score big time. So like I think my score was only like a 60, but like in the qualifiers it was like a 75. I did the same run in qualifiers and qualified in 7th with a 75, and then in finals I put my hand down, so it kind of scored low. So like who knows what I would have scored if I didn't put my hand down. It would have been a much higher score, but you know, it's not a big deal. Like you can speculate all day, you never really know. But the run at the time was the best run I've ever done. I did a frontside 1080, cab 720, frontside 900 to backside double cork 1260. And actually, no, that wasn't the best run I've ever done, but it was, at the time, it felt super good because I had fallen on that run every contest before. So
you were able to accomplish something you hadn't been able to do before. And that's kind of the point that I'm trying to get at.
It pretty much. But actually, it was something even more special for me. Like I had done that run before. I had done all those tricks in my contest runs before, and then out of nowhere during X Games, those tricks weren't coming together. And I was like, oh, I'm losing tricks. I'm losing my mojo. I'm not riding like how I was riding in December. And then it all came back in Canada. So it was like, you know, had a great start to the season to a big screeching like halt for a second where everything is just not working out, and then it all came back together in Canada. So it was more I just like got through a really crappy place mentally, and that's what I was more proud of. I was like, oh, I can do those tricks all the time. I'm more proud that I just like didn't let my negative thinking get the best of me, because
it just shows your ability to adapt and overcome to these difficult situations and not allowing failure to define you.
Yeah, totally. And I'd say, yeah, for me, like it's a lot harder to get through failure and come out on top than it is to do a double cork 1260. Like doing the tricks is the easy part, I'd say. The hard part is the mental piece, especially when you fall 3 contests in a row on tricks you know how to do. Then you really start like, oh, what's wrong with me? Like, I have something going on. And it tests you for sure.
So what advice do you have, can you offer to someone who's not a professional snowboarder or even into snowboarding and doesn't understand a single one of those words, those tricks? Because I know what some of them are, but there's a lot of terminology there that people don't understand. But the point that I want to make is, how can you take these principles that have led you to your success? What advice do you have to offer to someone who might be going through a mental halt and experiencing a halt or mental difficulty or emotional difficulty in their life right now, that how that relates to your achieving success in snowboarding?
I'd say just the adversity is what makes stories great in life. So anytime you're going through something, or anytime you have an obstacle or a hurdle to jump, like, that's a good thing. I'd say embrace the hell out of adversity, because that's what I did. I kind of, that's the only reason why I'm sitting here talking to you today. And is because I've gone through failures before. And without those failures, people wouldn't want to know my story at all. So I'd say, like, anytime you do have things working against you or hurdles to jump, good. Like, that's where you're going to learn the most in life. That's where you're going to learn the most about yourself. That's where you're really going to be able to create yourself. And those are the things that you'll be remembered for. And, people, like, just like you and me right now, we're not talking about all the stuff that I've done in snowboarding necessarily. We're talking about a little bit of it, but we're more talking about, like, how do you get through failure? So I don't know, you got to fail in order to get opportunities like this, where you're being asked to be on a podcast. It's a good thing to fail. It's a good thing to get defeated. Like, that's where the best stories in the world all come from.
Yeah.
Some people that, like, look at Shaun White, like the gold medal he won in Korea. He took a terrible fall 6 months before that and busted his face open, and not just busted his face open, so much more than that. Like, he took the worst fall he's ever taken. And that's after Shaun's had 10 years of being the, like, most dominant, undefeated half-pipe snowboarder ever. And then boom, smacks his face on the half-pipe wall. It takes a while to recover. That's a whole other story, but, like, he went from one of the lowest lows in his career. I'm sure, I can't speak for him, but from the stories I've heard, that was like the craziest thing that's ever happened to Shaun. And then boom, wins a gold medal at the Olympics, 3rd gold medal. Just like my coach JJ, who coached Shaun and went through Shaun's fall. Like, JJ got cut from Burton Snowboards, his sponsor at the time, before he got a bronze medal at the Olympics in 2002. And that's, like, a big deal when your snowboard sponsor cuts you right before the Olympic year. You're like, oh my God, like, that's they're usually paying for your travel and stuff. And that's, like, a big loss for a snowboarder. So I don't know. You look at all the best snowboarders that have done the greatest things. They've all had bad injuries or bad, things that they've gone through.
Yeah. Adversity and failure and mistakes are what define us. And
Totally.
Our reaction to those are what define us. We can grow and become better, or we will identify with those failures. And
Yeah.
when we take that on as us, like, as I failed at this, I suck, I'm terrible. There is not much room for joy and happiness and peace and stillness in our life. We have to use these opportunities to grow. It's exactly what society is going through right now. We're going through something we get to determine how this defines us as a people and individually as well. So yeah. We're about out of time here, and I know we've gone over the scheduled time. So I'm super appreciative of your time and your willingness to come on here and share yourself with me and the audience. You're truly remarkable dude. You're 21, right?
20.
You're 20. Holy crap. This kid can't even drink alcohol, and he's full of life wisdom, man. So you're like,
thanks, man.
and I feel like you're more mature than I am. So man, it's incredible to get to speak with you and learn more about you.
Thanks,
and
man.
your journey. And when I see you in the Olympics, whenever that is, I'm gonna be like, man, I know that dude. I hope this. And when you put that gold medal on, man, I'll be yelling, man. I'm excited for you. You got good things.
Thanks, man.
So
Appreciate it.
well, cool, man. I look forward to it. Thanks so much. And
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, if you need, if there's virus stuff or ever, let me know. I'll do what I can to help you. I'm pretty resourceful. I'll find people to help other people in other states. I've done that before. So if you need anything, let me know.
Yeah, man. You too.
All right, bro. We'll talk to you later.
Sounds good. Have a good one.
You too.
Hey guys, be sure to follow the Metal Mentality Podcast on social media. And as always, if you find value in the show, please leave a review and rate us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. But more importantly, share this podcast with someone you know who would benefit from the messages from the guests on each episode. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter @Metal Mentality.